It sounds on the face of it really quite alarming, the idea of rounding people up and flying them 4,500 miles to Rwanda for processing. But it's only going to happen to certain migrants, isn't it? And apparently other countries do this already.
That's right. Well, Denmark was one of the countries that first explored one of these options in terms of the countries in this part of the world. And also we know that offshore processing is a big part of the Australian migration system, or I should say asylum-seeking system. Really what we're looking at here is sort of working age males who are coming across in small boats will be the ones who are most flown off to Rwanda to be processed, obviously for this 5-year deal to see how this works to start with. But ultimately, what we see currently with those going across in small boats is a split. Some would say about 2/3 of those actually have their asylum granted and about 1/3 don't. But currently we don't really have the processes to deal with the third that don't. They end up staying in the UK. We don't have the deals with France, for example, to send people back. It's very tricky within the realms of international law in terms of what you do with people once they're in the country. So the idea is by having an international treaty with another country, a third country, whereby this stuff can be processed, we won't have this legal limbo of people stuck within the United Kingdom who haven't had their asylum.
So as soon as if they make it to Britain safely, they're rounded up and they'll be put on a plane, literally, almost straight away and sent to Rwanda.
That seems to be the plan as it stands. Obviously not all of those who come across, but many of those who...
Because apparently nine in every 10 are people who actually do make it across are young males, and most of them single.
Certainly, and that's why people have a great concern, because there's a distinction, of course, between genuine asylum seekers and those who are economic migrants. And a lot of people are concerned that the big increase in people coming across, around 600 on small boats just yesterday, it's a huge increase in numbers, and many people are concerned that these numbers include people who aren't genuine asylum seekers, but who are looking to make a better life for themselves and are choosing to do a non-approved route to do so. I think one of the big aims of this scheme, which is being announced concurrently, Priti Patel will be in Rwanda and Boris Johnson will be down in Dover. It will be trying to incentivise people to apply through the proper systems, rather than coming across in dangerous ways with illegal gangs, risking their own life and limb on an incredibly treacherous stretch of water, the busiest shipping channel in the world.
But
the idea is to discourage
how much can we trust Rwanda to do a good job? When they don't exactly have a glittering human record, do they?
That's certainly true, and that's what a lot of people have been bringing up today. There's certain concerns with regard to how Rwanda particularly treats political prisoners. The criminal justice system in Rwanda is not one that is rated particularly highly around the world, although what the United Kingdom government would say in response to that is the deal that has been thrashed out and has been being worked on for quite some time. Of course, the option for offshore processing is a key part of the Nationality and Borders Bill that's currently going through Parliament. Is that there would be all of these safeguards within the deal. There would be legally binding international treaty law in order to ensure the good treatment of these people.
But if a big part of the problem is the number of people who come over who don't get granted asylum, but who then we can't send anywhere, what happens to them if they're not granted asylum and they're in Rwanda? Are they going to stay in Rwanda?
Well, then they would obviously be released, and I think that one of the arguments here is that Rwanda isn't necessarily a country that has as much economic opportunity as the United Kingdom, and so it wouldn't be so much of a problem in terms of people wouldn't really want to stick around. I think that's basically
so it's part of the disincentivising of them.
I think this is basically what the government's trying to get at. And now, obviously, there is a lot of criticism for this scheme. Lots of immigration lawyers say that it is inhumane, and indeed there is the argument that the reason that small boat crossings have risen by such a large degree over the last few years is actually that the Calais situation has been more or less dealt with. We don't now see so many people coming across on lorries and on trains through the Channel Tunnel. So it's arguably a similar number of people in total coming across, but through different means. And so the question is, if you then shut down this other mean, will people find yet a different mean? Will people always be one step ahead of government restriction? Perhaps. clearly a big debate to be had around this, although I think it's important to stress that in the opinion polls, this idea of offshore processing for people before they come to the United Kingdom is an incredibly popular one.
Yes.
And potentially this is why the government is so keen to pursue it in such short order.
Yeah, well, I can believe it. Tom, thank you very much indeed.